Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If Deku Had the Power of Rogue? Chosen One 123 wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. The ride up into the mountains was loud with chatter. Kaminari and Mina were cracking jokes across the aisle, Jiro tried to drown them out with her earbuds, and Ida was already lecturing half the class on proper posture while riding public transportation. Izuku sat near the middle with Hikari pressed comfortably at his side. The motion of the bus made her hair sway across her face, and she brushed it back, the chain around her neck glinting in the sunlight. It caught Ishido's eye first. She leaned forward over her seat. "Oh, is that a ring on your necklace, Hikari?" Heads turned. The glint of silver dangled clear as day. Hikari's smile widened, sly and warm all at once as she touched it lightly. Kaminari's jaw dropped. "Wait, you two are?" Izuku nearly choked on his own breath, his face turning crimson as he tugged his hoodie up higher. It's not. We're not." Hikari just laughed softly, the sound melting his nerves even as the class broke into whispers. "They're totally," Mina grinned. "I knew it," Jiro muttered with a smirk. Even Todoroki gave them a long, thoughtful look. Before Izuku could stammer out a defense, the bus hissed to a stop, brakes squealing. Aizawa's flat voice cut through the noise from the front. "We're here. Off the bus. Now." The class scrambled, laughter and curiosity still buzzing, but Izuku kept his head low, cheeks burning. Hikari, though she wore that smile the whole way down the steps, her fingers brushing against his just long enough to make his blush worse. The bus doors hissed open and Class 1A spilled out into the mountain air. The ground sloped down into dense, shadowed forest, a blanket of green stretching all the way to the horizon. Before anyone could ask about the camp, Pixie Bob's cheerful shout rang out. "Welcome Class 1A. Training camp starts now." Her hands slammed into the dirt. The ground heaved. The cliff beneath their feet split and bucked, the earth itself tossing them forward. Students screamed as the ledge gave way. Ida and Uraraka flailed, Todoroki braced himself with a burst of ice, but the force knocked everyone downward toward the trees. Izuku felt the cliff drop out from under him, his stomach lurching. He caught a glimpse of Hikari ahead, thrown hard by the shifting ground, her body tumbling toward the jagged rocks below. "Hikari." His hand snapped out. His mother's quirk flared, amplified, heavy, impossible to ignore. Loose stones, scraps of metal from the guardrail, even clumps of soil lurched toward him. And with them Hikari's body was pulled, yanked clean out of her fall and into his reach. He caught her hard against his chest, bracing himself with shock absorption as their momentum slammed him onto solid ground. They both stayed on top of the cliff. Hikari's eyes were wide, chest heaving. "You pulled me?" Izuku just nodded, jaw tight. "I wasn't letting you go." Behind them, the pussycats had stopped in their tracks. Pixie Bob blinked, ears twitching. "Wait. He shouldn't be able to." Mandalay cut her off, eyes narrowing. "He dragged a person. With force. That wasn't small object attraction." Pixie Bob tilted her head. "So, should we toss these two down too?" Aizawa's voice cut flat and final. "No. Midoriya would tear through it in minutes. Hikari would nullify the beasts outright. It'd be a waste of the exercise." Izuku blinked, caught off guard. "So what do we do?" "Wait," Aizawa said simply. "They'll take longer than you would." Pixie Bob pouted dramatically. "Well, that takes the fun out of it." Mandalay ignored her. "Fine. Back on the bus until the class arrives at camp. You two will help us cook." Hikari leaned closer to Izuku, smirking as the teachers herded them back. "Guess we're too good for cliff throws?" Izuku flushed faintly, muttering, "Or just too much of a headache." "Well, I'm not complaining. I've been nauseous all day and I don't know why," said Hikari as she looped her hands into Izuku's arms. The two of them climbed back onto the bus with the pros, the hum of the engine filling the silence while the forest swallowed their classmates whole. The bus rattled to a stop at camp, and before Izuku or Hikari could even ask what came next, Mandalay was already waving them toward the cabins. "Since you two skipped the hike, you're on kitchen duty." Her tone was firm, but there was a flicker of warmth in her eyes as she added, "Besides, it'll give you a chance to meet my nephew. He's staying with us for the summer." Moments later, the sharp sense of broth and spices replaced the smell of diesel, and the clatter of knives and pots drowned out the forest outside. The chopping, sizzling, and bubbling filled the camp kitchen. Mandalay stirred a pot while Pixie Bob hummed at the cutting board. Hikari managed the rice, slipping Izuku the occasional sly grin whenever his carrot cuts got uneven. Koda hovered near the counter, arms crossed, posture closed off. He hadn't said much, just watched them work with that faint scowl etched into his face. Finally he muttered, just loud enough, "Why do you even want to be heroes? Heroes don't save people. They get themselves killed." The room went quiet. Even the simmering broth seemed to hush. Izuku's knife paused mid-cut. He glanced at Kota, not angry, not smiling, just steady. "You're talking about your parents, right?" Kota's jaw tightened. "They died being heroes. They left me with nothing. And everyone acts like I should be proud. I hate them." Pixie Bob froze with her knife, ears flattening, but Mandalay placed a quiet hand on her arm. This was not theirs to answer. Izuku set down the carrot, wiping his hands on a towel. His voice was calm but carried weight. "You're allowed to hate. Pretending you don't would be a lie." Kota blinked, thrown off by the bluntness. Izuku leaned forward slightly, green eyes sharp. "But here's the thing, stewing in it won't change anything. And being passive, pretending you don't care, that's worse. Anger can burn you up, or it can move you forward. What you do with it is the part that matters." Kota scowled. "And what, you think I should just put on a cape like them? Be a hero?" Izuku shook his head. "No. I think you should decide for yourself. Stop letting the world decide for you. If you hate what heroes are, then prove you can be something better. Sitting in the corner hating won't change a damn thing." The words landed heavy. Hikari's eyes flicked toward him, impressed, though her hand brushed against his arm to remind him to ease up. Kota looked away, fists clenched at his sides. He didn't argue further, but the silence that followed was thicker than before. Mandalay broke it gently, her voice low. "Food's almost ready. We'll talk more later." Izuku picked his knife back up, but his gaze lingered on Kota just a second longer, his own thoughts echoing. Stewing never saved anyone. Action does. Evening, the camp kitchen. By the time the rest of Class 1A trudged into camp, they were a mess of scratches, dirt, and exhaustion. Complaints echoed loud enough to rattle the walls. "Those beasts were ridiculous." Kaminari groaned. "My poor legs." Ida wheezed. Mina flopped dramatically onto the ground. "I think my soul stayed back there." Shinso, who tagged along under Aizawa's watch, looked half dead on his feet, muttering that he hadn't signed up for this much cardio. The smell of food hit them, and suddenly every exhausted face perked up. Mandalay clapped her hands. "Dinner's ready, everyone. Courtesy of Izuku, Hikari, and the Pussycats." A grateful cheer went up. Even Shinso, seated at the far end of the table, cracked the faintest smirk before digging in. Izuku and Hikari stood to the side, aprons dusted with flour and a little rice still stuck to Hikari's sleeve. She laughed softly, brushing it off as Izuku looked sheepish. "Guess we didn't do too bad," she teased. Izuku scratched his neck, but his smile was real. Better than the cafeteria back home. They shared a quiet laugh as their classmates dug in. For once, Izuku didn't feel every eye on him in suspicion. Just tired students grateful for a meal. As the stars stretched across the mountain sky, Izuku and Hikari slipped out to sit on the steps, plates balanced on their knees. The night air was cool, the sounds of their classmates faint behind them. Hikari leaned her head lightly on his shoulder, smiling at the dark sky. "Tomorrow the real training starts." Izuku nodded, a rare, unguarded grin crossing his face. "Good. I'm ready." And in that small, fleeting moment, stomach full, hands steady, her warmth beside him, he almost felt normal. Happy. The next morning. The mountain air was sharp and cool, but the training field buzzed with heat. Class 1A and Shinso groaned as the Pussycats barked orders, each student shoved to their breaking point, strengthening quirks, stamina, and raw grit. But Izuku wasn't with them. Aizawa had pulled him aside, Hikari trailing close until her father gave her a pointed look that sent her back to the group. Izuku stood alone on the edge of the clearing, sweat already dampening his collar as Aizawa laid it out. "Your classmates need to expand the limits of their quirks. For you it's different. You don't just have one ability, you've got 5 permanent ones, and amplification makes each one more dangerous than it should be." He adjusted his scarf. "So your job today is simple, find your limits. And then break them." Izuku's jaw tightened. "Understood." Stage 1, Metal Manipulation. They brought in piles of scrap, rebar, beams, twisted machinery. Izuku's gloves flexed as he focused, the metal groaning, bending, and spiraling through the air. At first he could only juggle a few pieces at once, but as Aizawa pressed him, more and more bent to his will. "Keep going," Aizawa ordered, "until you can't anymore." By midday, Izuku was drenched in sweat, his breath ragged. He had entire structures floating around him, beams interlocking, plates orbiting like armor. But the moment his focus slipped, the whole construct shuddered and crashed to the dirt. Good, Aizawa said flatly. Now do it again. Stage 2 Attraction Mother's Quirk. Weights, rocks, and objects of all sizes were scattered across the training ground. Amplification made his pull far stronger than before. He dragged boulders, yanked entire trees forward until roots screamed in protest, even pulled a full water tank an inch before collapsing to one knee. His hands shook as he caught his breath. I didn't know I could pull this much. That's the point, Aizawa muttered. Stage 3 Shock Absorption. Pixie Bob created earth beasts to attack him. They hit like trucks, fists slamming into Izuku's body. Shock absorption dulled the pain, but Aizawa pushed him to stay standing, to tank every blow and keep moving. Each strike rattled his bones. But Izuku kept stepping forward, fists raised, until the last beast crumbled into dust. Stage 4 Amplification Tests. Finally they layered it. Izuku drew in metal, amplified his mother's pull, and tried to combine them, pulling in steel beams, shaping them into armor around his body, then tanking hits with shock absorption all at once. At first it was chaos. The beams bent too fast, snapping under pressure, or slammed into him instead of forming. But slowly his control sharpened. His pull grew precise, his shield thicker, his movements faster. By evening he collapsed onto the dirt, chest heaving, sweat dripping from his chin. His shirt clung to his back, his muscles screaming. Aizawa crouched nearby, scarf trailing. That's enough for today. You've got a long way to go. But now we know where your limits are. Izuku stared up at the sky, breathless, a faint grin tugging his lips. Then tomorrow I'll push them further. Cliffside, after dinner. The forest below glowed faintly from the campfires, but up here it was all shadows and starlight. Kota sat with his arms around his knees, staring down into the dark valley. He didn't turn when Izuku sat beside him. You again, Kota muttered. Didn't I make it clear? I don't care about your hero pep talks. Izuku rested his arms on his knees, voice quiet. I'm not here to give one. Just making sure you're okay. You didn't eat. Kota was silent for a beat, then said flatly, heroes don't fix anything. They just get killed or they make things worse. You don't even seem like a hero yourself. Not the way you fight. Not the way you talk. That one made Izuku pause. He felt it settle in his chest, heavy. You're not wrong. Kota's eyes flicked toward him, sharp. Then what are you gonna do? If you're not like them, then what? You think you're some kind of better hero? Or something else? Izuku stared out at the stars, gloves glinting faintly in the moonlight. He thought of the sports festival, of the crowd calling him Exodus. Of the way All Might couldn't even look at him. Of Nisa's warnings. Finally his voice came low and steady. I want to save people. People like me. The quirkless, the weak, the ones called dangerous. The ones society gave up on. I don't care if they call me a hero or a villain for it. Names don't matter. Saving people does. Kota blinked, startled. You'd really help people like me? Even if they hate you for it? Izuku's jaw tightened. Especially then. Because if I don't, who will? The words landed like a weight heavier than any lecture. Kota didn't answer right away. His fingers clenched against his knees, and for once, his scowl softened into something uncertain. You're right, he muttered finally. You're not a typical hero. Izuku gave a small, almost rueful smile. Good. Because if being typical means letting people like us slip through the cracks, then I don't want to be. For a long time they just sat there, the night air carrying the sound of the forest. For the first time, Kota didn't look like he wanted Izuku gone. Morning. The sun bled pale gold across the treetops, but Izuku couldn't shake the tightness in his chest. He sat on the steps outside the cabin, lacing his boots, his gloves already snug on his hands. The forest was quiet, too quiet, and it pressed on him like a warning. Hikari stepped out, her hair loose, stretching her arms as if she hadn't noticed the heaviness in the air. But when she saw his face, her smile softened. She walked over, crouched in front of him, and put a hand over his wrist. She was practically glowing as she smiled. You've got that look again, she teased gently. The one where you're already bracing for the world to fall apart. Izuku let out a shaky breath, eyes dropping to the dirt. I don't know why, but something feels wrong. Like we're about to get hit with something bad. Hikari tilted her head, then slowly unclasped the chain around her neck, letting the small ring she always wore catch the morning light. She clutched it tightly in her palm, then pressed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. Then we'll face it together, she said firmly. Her voice softened, but the edge of steel didn't leave it. I love you, Izuku. That's not going to change. Not today, not ever. He blinked, stunned by how easily she said it. His throat tightened, but a faint, unguarded smile broke across his face. He covered her hand with his gloved one, squeezing it gently. I love you too, he whispered back. For a moment they just sat there, the world held at bay. Then Hikari's lips curled into something sly. She leaned in closer, her voice low and teasing. And thank you, for last night. The hot springs, huh? Bold of you, Midoriya. Izuku's entire body went rigid, his face burning crimson. Hikari? Don't say that out loud. She laughed softly, brushing a quick kiss against his cheek. Relax. No one's going to find out. Besides. Her grin widened. You have to admit, it was unforgettable. His blush deepened, words failing him completely. Aye. You don't have to say it, she teased warmly, brushing her thumb across his jaw. I already know. The forest was still heavy, still wrong, but her smile, and the teasing glint in her eyes, cut through the dread. Whatever storm waited for them, Izuku felt strong enough to face it as long as she was beside him. The camp rang with shouting, explosions, and the thud of fists and quirks against earth. Class 1A trained harder than ever, the Pussycats and Aizawa forcing them to drag every ounce of power out of their quirks. But Izuku's focus wasn't just on the drills. His eyes kept flicking back, to where Hikari practiced capture drills with her father, sparring against Mandalay. Every few minutes, his chest tightened, and he'd stop whatever he was doing just to check she was still there. Eyes forward, Midoriya, Aizawa called dryly, not even glancing up. If you're that worried about her, train harder. That's how you protect people. Izuku muttered an apology and bent down again, sweat dripping from his forehead. Today's exercise was different. Instead of lifting scrap or bending beams, he crouched low, bare feet pressed to small steel plates he'd embedded under the soles of his training shoes. The metal hummed faintly at his will, tugging against gravity as he steadied himself. Come on, he whispered, clenching his fists. Balance, control. The plates rose just an inch, then two. Izuku wobbled, his arms out like wings, sweat stinging his eyes. He was floating, barely awkwardly but floating all the same. A shadow passed across him. Hikari. She stopped, watching him hover unsteadily over the dirt, and grinned. Careful, Rocket Boy, she teased, brushing her fingers along his arm as she passed. Don't break your neck before dinner. Izuku steadied himself with a ragged laugh, then landed with a hard thud. He looked up at her, panting, a faint flush in his cheeks. I'll get it right. Hikari leaned down, kissed his temple quick, and whispered, I know you will. But quit worrying so much. I'm fine. I'm even feeling better today, even though I threw up during cardio session. Her smile was so sure, so steady, it cut through the storm in his chest. For a while. But as she jogged back to her drill, Izuku's eyes followed her again. That wrongness, that feeling in his gut, it hadn't gone away. And no matter how much he told himself to focus, he couldn't shake the thought that this piece was about to shatter. The sun dipped lower, painting the clearing in shades of amber. Sweat plastered Izuku's hair to his forehead as he crouched on the training mats, his multi-tool laid out in pieces before him. Focus, Aizawa instructed, standing with arms crossed. Raw power means nothing if you can't control it. Show me precision. Izuku took a slow breath. The steel fragments trembled, then lifted into the air, each piece orbiting him in a rough circle. Bolts, blades, joints, the wrench head, all rotating, pausing, shifting like planets. Now put it back together, Aizawa said. Izuku's brow furrowed, his gloves creaking as his fingers twitched. The parts clicked, spun, slid together, wrong the first time, then again. Each failure made his jaw tighten. But then, click. The wrench locked into place. Another piece slid home. A handle. A hinge. Bit by bit, the multi-tool reformed, floating whole again in his hands. Izuku exhaled hard, gripping it, a tired but proud smile pulling at his lips. Got it? Aizawa gave a slight nod. Better. Again. By the time the sun hit the trilene, Izuku had taken the tool apart and reassembled it dozens of times, each faster, smoother, more precise. Last drill, Aizawa said, pointing to the makeshift field where plates of scrap metal lay scattered. You've been using your pole and metal shaping all day. Push it. Show me where the line is. Izuku's heart thumped as he stepped barefoot onto the plates beneath his shoes. The steel hummed against his soles. He bent his knees. Focused. The plates lifted. 1 inch. 2. His arms spread for balance, his body shaking with the strain. Come on, he hissed, sweat dripping. Don't fall this time. He leaned forward, and the plates moved. Not just up but forward. A slow, awkward glide, only a few feet, but enough to make his stomach swoop. Why yes. He lost balance and crashed into the dirt, rolling to a stop. Hikari burst into laughter from across the field, running over. You looked like a baby bird, she teased, grinning wide. Izuku groaned, sitting up with dirt in his hair, but a tired smile broke through. But I flew. She crouched down beside him, her voice softer now. Yeah, you did. Aizawa watched silently, his expression unreadable. But inside he marked the progress carefully and proudly. Though the flirting with him and his daughter always got to him. Emi would laugh at him and tell him that his dad instincts are coming out more. He gave a small smirk as Hikari helped Izuku up to his feet as his daughter smiled so brightly. Forest path, late evening. The cicadas hummed in the trees, the forest heavy with night air. Izuku and Hikari walked slowly, emerging from the trees just having their own time together. Yet the quiet pressing down on them harder than usual. Izuku's jaw was tight, his eyes scanning every shadow. I don't like this. Something feels wrong. I can't shake it. Hikari stopped, tugging lightly at his arm until he turned. Her eyes searched his face, saw the tension written into every line of it. Without a word, she reached down and slipped her fingers into his, bare skin against bare skin. No quirk suppression, no gloves, no barrier. Just touch. Izuku's breath caught. Hikari? Shoo. She squeezed his hand firmly, leaning closer until her forehead brushed his. You're not going to lose me. You've got me. Always. His chest hitched, the wrongness clawing at him dulled by the steady warmth of her hand in his. For the first time all evening he felt the storm in him quiet. Then her lips curved into a teasing smile. Besides, if something does happen, I've got a super-powered boyfriend who'll come save me. Izuku's face burned red. You can't just say stuff like that. She shut him up with a kiss, quick but sure. See, she whispered against his lips. It's fine. And for a moment, Izuku almost believed it. They walked back hand in hand, skin to skin, his chest still tight but steadier for it. By the time they returned, the rest of Class 1A was laughing nervously, flashlights in hand, lining up for the test of courage. Mandalay's eyes kept scanning the camp. She finally stepped over to Izuku, her voice quiet but firm. Midoriya. Kota hasn't come back yet. It's getting late. Would you check on him? You're the only one he's even half spoken to. Izuku straightened, startled. Oh, of course. I'll find him. Hikari, who had been standing close enough to catch every word, touched his sleeve before he moved. See? Perfect timing. You were wound up anyway, go talk to him. He listens to you more than you think. Izuku hesitated, worry written across his face. And leave you here? She smiled, steady as ever. I'll be fine. Go. He needs you. For a moment, Izuku just looked at her, at the way the firelight caught the ring still dangling at her throat, at the way her eyes held no doubt. His chest tightened, but he leaned in, brushing a quick kiss against her lips. I love you, he whispered, soft but certain. Her smile warmed. I love you too. Now go before Mandalay decides to drag you by the ear. Izuku laughed under his breath, nerves easing for just a heartbeat. Then he turned, heading down the shadowed trail toward the cliffside. The laughter of his classmates faded behind him until only the cicadas and the crunch of gravel under his boots remained. Ahead, the forest opened to the edge of the cliff, where Kota sat curled up with his knees to his chest, staring out at the stars. The forest below whispered with night sounds, but up on the ledge, silence stretched between them. Kota's knees were still pulled tight to his chest, as Izuku began to be walked close to him though his scowl had eased, the sharp edges dulled by uncertainty. Izuku leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, eyes still fixed on the stars. His voice was quieter now but steady. You know, you were right earlier. I don't sound like a hero. Not the way I fight. Not the way I think. Kota's head tilted wary. So then what are you? Izuku's jaw tightened, breath slow. I'm angry. At heroes who smile for cameras but ignore people like us. At villains who think power means control. At a world that decides who's worth saving and who isn't. He glanced down at his gloved hands, flexing them once. I'm not going to pretend I'm not furious at all of it. Kota frowned. Anger doesn't fix anything. You told me. No, Izuku said sharply, turning to look at him. But sitting still is worse. Stewing in it, pretending not to care, that's what kills you. Anger by itself is useless, but if you use it, if you turn it into fuel, it becomes something else. The boy blinked, startled at the intensity in his voice. Izuku's gaze burned in the moonlight, his words cutting like steel. I'm going to use mine to save people. All of them, the quirkless, the weak, the ones called dangerous, the ones everyone else gave up on. I don't care if they spit on me, if they call me Exodus, villain, monster. I'll still pull them out of the fire. I'll still fight until I can't stand anymore. That's what my anger is for. That's my mission. The weight of it hung heavy in the air. Kota's fists tightened against his knees, his eyes wide. He muttered almost to himself, "You're insane." Izuku let out a rough, humorless chuckle. Maybe. But insanity saves more people than doing nothing. For a long moment, Kota didn't argue. His scowl was gone, replaced by something smaller, conflicted but listening. For the first time, he wasn't looking for a reason to push Izuku away. The quiet almost felt like progress. And then the cicadas stopped. The forest went still. Too still. Izuku froze, every nerve on edge, and rose to his feet in one swift motion. His body shifted instinctively in front of Kota, jaw clenched, fists balled. "Stay behind me." The footsteps came slow, heavy, purposeful. Not searching, closing in. A voice rolled out of the tree line, mocking and certain. "So this is where they put you. The brat they're calling Exodus. Looks like I don't have to waste time hunting tonight." The figure stepped into the moonlight. One glaring eye, shoulders bulging, long sleeves stretched tight over the cords of grotesque muscle shifting beneath. Izuku didn't recognize him, but the way he smiled, like a predator, set his nerves alight. Behind him, Kota's face drained of color. His breath hitched, words torn out in a rasp. "It's him. He's the one who killed my parents." Izuku's eyes widened, but Muscular only chuckled. Guess the brat remembers. Good. Makes this easier." He rolled his shoulders, fabric straining with each twitch of muscle. "League said you weren't on the capture list. You're special. You're a kill order." Izuku's teeth clenched. His voice cut sharp, demanding. "Who else is here? Who are you after besides me? Who's on your capture list?" Muscular grinned, one eye gleaming cruel in the moonlight. "Oh, you think I'm gonna hand you the playbook before I snap you in half? Cute." Izuku stepped forward, pulling a shard of guardrail steel into his grip, the metal screeching as it bent to his will. "Answer me." The villain just laughed, loud and cruel, muscles swelling beneath his sleeves. "Doesn't matter who else we want. You're not living long enough to warn anybody." The air thickened, cords of flesh bulging and writhing like snakes under cloth. Izuku's pulse hammered, but his stance didn't falter. "You're not touching him. And you're not killing me." Muscular's grin stretched, wide and hungry. "Then stop me, Exodus." Muscular lunged first, faster than his size should have allowed. The ground cracked under his feet, the sheer force shaking loose rocks from the cliff. Izuku barely had time to brace before the punch landed. It hit like a wrecking ball, sending him skidding across the stone. His body screamed, then steadied, shock absorption soaking the worst of the impact, regeneration stitching torn fibers back together. Kota flinched at the sound, his breath catching. "You took that head on." Izuku wiped the blood from his lip, eyes narrowing. "So you rely on brute force, fine." The liquid metal he got from Melissa surged from his gloves and sleeves, flowing like mercury into jagged blades and rippling shields around his arms. They gleamed under the moonlight, alive at his command. Muscular grinned, charging again. His fists hammered against the metal constructs, each blow shattering and reforming plates in bursts of sparks. Izuku absorbed the impacts, but his arms trembled with the speed. "Too fast, he's pushing me back." The villain laughed. "That all you got, boy? Just a meat shield with toys?" Izuku grit his teeth. He forced himself to stay calm, watching patterns in the attacks. The way Muscular overcommit, the fraction of a second where his weight shifted before each swing. "You're strong, but reckless." Izuku feinted back, letting his liquid metal lash outward in a whip that coiled around Muscular's torso. The villain snarled, ripping against it, exactly what Izuku wanted. He yanked, twisting with his whole body. The reinforced shirt strained, then ripped, the fabric tearing clean across Muscular's shoulder. Moonlight hit exposed flesh. Izuku's eyes locked on it, pupils sharp. "No." He lunged forward, ignoring the fist slamming into his ribs. Pain flared, but shock absorption dulled it, regeneration already mending what cracked. His hand shot out, slamming against bare skin. The villain's eye widened as Izuku's quirk flared, life force draining, raw and real, pulsing up through his palm. Muscular staggered, muscles spasming under the sudden drain. Izuku's voice came low, burning with fury. "You made a mistake showing me your skin." Muscular snarled, cords straining and ripping at the grip, but Izuku held tight, liquid metal reinforcing his arm like living armor. Power surged like lightning through his arm, the grotesque cords under muscular skin thrashing as they bled into him. For a heartbeat, Izuku felt it, the unnatural flex of flesh, the brutal strength. And then came the memories. A dark chamber. Voices low but sharp. Exodus is not to be captured. Kill on sight. Hikari is priority, her nullification can be used by Sensei. Bokugo Katsuki. Volatile but he'll break well. Capture him. Shinso. His quirk makes him useful. Bring him in as well. Izuku's breath stuttered. His grip faltered for half a second as rage and horror slammed into him at once. They're here for them. Not just me. Hikari. Bokugo. Shinso. Capture. Rebuild. Break. No. The word ripped from his throat, raw and trembling. His eyes burned, his entire body shaking. Liquid metal flared violently around him, spikes and shards orbiting in a storm that cut into the cliffside. "No," he roared, voice cracking with fury. "You're not taking her. You're not touching them." The drain finally snapped Muscular's body limp. He collapsed with a heavy thud, cords shriveling, his massive frame slamming against the dirt unconscious. Izuku staggered back, chest heaving, his gloves smoking. Koda's wide eyes locked on him, on the storm of metal shredding the air, on the fire burning in Izuku's gaze. Izuku turned, his voice shaking but resolute. "We're leaving. Now." He pulled Koda to his feet, steadying him with a hand that trembled more from rage than exhaustion. The boy's small fingers clung to him, for once without protest. From the cliff's edge he could see it, smoke bleeding up from the treeline, orange firelight flickering between the shadows. The camp was burning. Everything was already falling apart. They took a step toward the trail back to camp, when gravel shifted behind them. A sickening crack echoed as Muscular's body twitched. The monster stirred, cords pulsing violently, his ruined shirt tearing away as muscle fibers swelled grotesquely, thicker and stronger than before. Koda gasped, stumbling back. He's getting up." Izuku froze, his pulse a war drum in his ears. And then his eyes lit green. Not just the faint shimmer of his quirk, a blazing, furious glow that pierced the night. His amplifier quirk roared awake, power flooding through every nerve, feeding on his rage. The air around him vibrated with pressure, liquid metal writhing like it was alive. He stepped forward, shielding Koda behind him, his voice low but thunderous. "You should have stayed down." Muscular grinned through the blood, madness gleaming in his lone eye. "Finally. Show me what you really are, Exodus." The cliffside trembled, the night about to explode. Muscular lunged, cords writhing and bulging grotesquely. His single eye burned with hunger, his grin manic. But this time, Izuku didn't budge. He raised his hand, liquid metal coiling around his arm into a spear, and amplified his pull. Every shard of steel on the cliff ripped free, snapping into orbit around him like 1,000 blades. His glowing eyes tracked Muscular's charge with cold precision. The villain swung, a fist the size of Izuku's torso tearing through the air. Izuku caught it. One hand. Shock absorption dulled the impact, regeneration mended the bones even as they cracked. He snarled, liquid metal wrapping around Muscular's arm and locking it in place. "You wasted my time once," Izuku hissed, voice shaking with fury. "Not again." He let Muscular's quirk surge through him. For a terrifying heartbeat, his own body swelled with borrowed muscle, cords rippling across his frame, amplified and controlled. With a roar, he yanked Muscular forward, then slammed his forehead into the villain's mask. Bone cracked. Muscular reeled, blood spraying, but Izuku didn't stop. He drove his liquid metal spear through Muscular's thigh, pinning him to the ground. The villain bellowed, but Izuku's amplified pull yanked him down again, slamming his face into the stone. Over and over and over. The cliff shook with every impact. Dust exploded around them. Muscular screams choked into gurgles. Izuku's voice cut through the carnage, raw and low. "I don't have time for you. They're after Hikari. I won't let you or anyone touch her." He wrenched Muscular up one last time, eyes blazing, then unleashed the full storm of steel. Every shard, every jagged plate, every spike tore into the villain at once, amplified by his fury. The cliffside itself seemed to collapse in on Muscular's body, burying him in a cage of twisted, crushing metal. When the dust cleared, Muscular lay broken and unconscious, his body twitching, his grotesque cords torn and limp. Izuku stood over him, chest heaving, green glow burning from his eyes. His liquid metal dripped and hissed as it withdrew back into him, his fists trembling from rage rather than weakness. He turned to Kota, voice rough but steady. We're done here. I have to find her. Kota stared at him, wide-eyed, too stunned to move. Izuku grabbed his shoulder gently but firmly. Now. But his legs were trembling, his face pale. Izuku looked down at him, saw the fear, the hesitation, and felt his chest twist. I don't have time to let you walk this out, Izuku muttered. His retractable gloves hissed as they extended, plates of liquid metal sliding down into reinforced grips. He hooked them carefully under Kota's arms and lifted him in one smooth motion. Kota yelped. Hey. You'll be safer like this, Izuku said, voice steady but burning with urgency. Hold on. Before Kota could argue, Izuku's muscles flexed, cords bulging beneath his skin. Muscular stolen quirk surged through him, amplified by his own. His legs coiled, then launched. The ground cracked under his takeoff. In seconds they were flying down the mountain trail, Izuku tearing through the forest like a living battering ram. Branches shattered against his armored arms, roots splintered under his feet, the sheer force of each stride rattling the trees. Kota clung to him, heart pounding, barely able to breathe from the speed. The glow in Izuku's eyes, the raw power burning through his body, it terrified him, but he couldn't look away. Izuku's voice cut through the wind, rough but certain. I told you before. You're safe with me. I'll drop you at camp, then I find Hikari. Kota tightened his grip, too overwhelmed to reply. The treeline broke and the glow of campfires flickered ahead. Izuku didn't slow. He vaulted a ridge, landing hard enough to crater the dirt, then sprinted straight for the cabins. He skidded to a halt at the edge of the campsite, setting Kota down gently, his retractable gloves retracting with a hiss. Izuku crouched, steadying the boy with both hands. Stay here. Don't move until someone finds you. Understand? Kota swallowed hard, staring up at him. For the first time, words slipped out almost without thought. Be careful. Izuku's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, the glow dimming. He nodded once. I will. Then he stood, his body still pulsing with power, and turned toward the chaos rising deeper in the woods. Hikari. I'm coming. Screams tore through the trees before Izuku even reached the clearing. He burst through the brush just as Moonfish's jagged metal teeth snapped outward, slicing trees in half as they whipped toward Tokoyami's group. Shoji shielded Hagakure with his arms, while Tokoyami staggered back, dark shadow thrashing violently at the sight of bloodlust. Moonfish's blades of teeth lashed out, snapping trees like twigs, carving through the air toward Tokoyami's group. Shoji pulled Hagakure close. Tokoyami staggered back, dark shadow thrashing with fear and fury. The villain hissed through his mask. Meat, carve them into meat. Then the teeth froze mid-swing, metal shrieking as they bent unnaturally. Izuku strode into the clearing, eyes glowing like embers, his hands raised. The amplifier roared in his veins, liquid metal spilling from his gloves into jagged coils. His voice was cold, flat, unrecognizable. Not tonight. With a wrench of both arms, the steel teeth whipped backward, coiling around Moonfish's body. The villain shrieked as his own quirk wrapped his chest and arms, snapping tight like a dozen serrated chains. What? Moonfish screeched, thrashing. Izuku didn't hesitate. He clenched his fists. The teeth stabbed downward, piercing through Moonfish's thighs and shoulders, pinning him to the dirt. His scream tore through the trees as blood soaked his clothes. Izuku twisted his wrist again, and the metal crushed tighter, bending joints at unnatural angles until the villain convulsed. A wet crack echoed. Moonfish's body jerked once, then sagged, his limbs crushed into the ground at twisted angles. He gasped, his voice breaking into a ragged wheeze beneath the mask. He was alive, but every spasm proved he'd never stand again. Izuku stepped closer, the glow in his eyes burning hotter. He knelt, liquid metal bristling like claws around his knuckles. His voice came low, a promise. You're finished? Move again and I'll break the rest of you. Moonfish shuddered, barely conscious, paralyzed in the dirt. Shoji and Hagakure stared, horrified. Tokoyami's eyes were wide, and dark shadow writhed violently behind him, feeding on the thick wave of violence and fear. Izuku stood, never sparing the villain another glance. He turned toward the group, chest heaving, his voice iron. He's not getting back up. You're safe. Then his jaw clenched, eyes scanning the trees. Hikari. Bakugo. Shinso. Capture orders. His fury boiled again, threatening to break loose. I don't have time for this, he muttered, more to himself than anyone. I have to find her. The ground shook as dark shadow shrieked, Tokoyami losing control. Izuku turned, eyes still glowing, fists tight. Then again, maybe I should start here. Dark shadow began to shriek, swollen with night, tearing trees apart as Tokoyami struggled to control it. Shoji shielded Hagakure while the monster lunged again. A wall of fire cut through the clearing, blazing gold. The shadow recoiled, hissing, shrinking back under the light. Move! Todoroki barked, stepping forward with smoke curling from his hand. His mismatched eyes flicked to Tokoyami, then to Izuku. That's enough. Tokoyami collapsed, gasping as dark shadow folded back into him. Shoji muttered, shaken, that was close. Then Mandalay's voice cut through all their minds at once, sharp and commanding. All students listen. Evacuate immediately. Do not engage the enemy further. Run to camp. The group stiffened. Shoji's shoulders dropped in relief. Hagakure let out a shaky laugh. Even Todoroki looked ready to turn. But Izuku's jaw clenched, the glow in his eyes flaring hotter. No. Every head snapped toward him. I don't care about running. They're not after you, they're after her. Ikari. Bakugo. Shinso. His voice cracked with raw urgency. If I waste time retreating, they'll be gone. Midoriya, Todoroki began, but Izuku was already moving. Liquid metal spilled from his gloves and boots, flattening into panels under his feet. The plates hummed as his amplified pull lifted him shakily above the dirt. Shoji's eyes widened. He's trying to fly. Izuku grit his teeth, wobbling higher. Sparks screamed from the straining metal. You can run if you want. I don't have that luxury. Bullshit. The word cracked like a grenade. Bakugo stepped forward, fists sparking, his face twisted in fury. You think this is about her? About Shinso? His voice rose, rough and bitter. They came because of you, Deku. You and your freak show quirk. You draw villains like flies to blood, and now the rest of us are choking on it. The air went still. Bakugo's hands flared brighter, rage boiling over. This raid, this whole damn mess, it's on you? You're not saving us, you're dragging us down with you. Everyone froze, Shoji, Hagakure, Todoroki, even Tokoyami pale and speechless. Above them, Izuku hovered unsteadily, the green glow in his eyes blazing hotter through the night. When he spoke, his voice was low, vibrating with fury. They were always coming. But if you think I'm dragging you down? His eyes locked with Bakugo's, unflinching. Then watch me end this. The plates screamed as he forced himself higher, streaking into the night sky like a green flare. His classmates watched him vanish, caught between Bakugo's accusation and the terrifying image of Izuku rising above them, glowing like something no longer human. Izuku's makeshift metal plates bucked and wobbled under his feet, carrying him in lurches over the treetops. His stomach churned with every slip, but the glow in his eyes only burned brighter. Sloppy or not, I don't care. Just get me to her. The forest ripped past him in blurs of orange and black. Flames chewed through the treetops, smoke clawed up into the night sky, and every stride sent shockwaves cracking the earth beneath his boots. The air stank of ash and blood. Screams bled through the roar of fire, sharp and distant, folding into the pounding of his heart. He wasn't soaring. He was tearing through a world already collapsing, a green flare streaking through hell. Through the haze he spotted movement below, four silhouettes fighting through thick, choking smoke. Momo, Tetsu, Kendo, and Kirishima were staggering, coughing, their attacks swinging blindly against the stifling fog. At the center of it, a boy in a gas mask calmly adjusted his revolver, loading rounds with precision. His voice carried, muffled but cutting, gas fills every corner. Struggle all you want. You'll choke before you ever reach me. Izuku dropped from the sky, metal plates screaming as they folded back into his gloves. His boots cratered the dirt, the impact echoing like thunder. Mustard spun, startled. Izuku clapped his hands together with all the force of muscular stolen strength. The shockwave blasted outward, dispelling the gas in a violent burst, tearing open a clear pocket of air. The villain stumbled, his cover ripped away. Izuku's glow locked on him. There you are. Before Mustard could raise his revolver, Izuku thrust out his hand. His mother's attraction quirk surged, amplified, overwhelming. The mask tore free of Mustard's face, yanked across the clearing into Izuku's palm. The villain choked instantly, his own poison gas flooding his lungs. He clawed at his throat, coughing violently, eyes wide. Izuku slipped the mask on himself, his voice echoing darkly through the filter. Funny. Doesn't feel so good when it's your lungs burning, does it? He stalked forward, each step deliberate, amplified pull dragging Mustard gun go Izuku letting it skid on the floor. The boy scrambled backward. Izuku crouched in front of him, eyes blazing through the lenses of the mask. His voice was a low snarl. You like hiding in smoke? Let's see what else you're hiding. He grabbed Mustard's face barehanded. The villain screamed as Izuku's quirk flared. Power and memory surged like a flood. Images flashed. League instructions: spread chaos with the gas, isolate stragglers. Capture orders: Hikari, Bakugo, Shinso. Kill order: Exodus. Everyone do as you please. Izuku's breath hitched behind the mask. His jaw clenched. The glow in his eyes seared hotter, brighter. They keep saying my name like it's a death sentence. His voice shook with fury. But it's theirs. Mustard convulsed, the drain leaving him limp, his quirk temporarily with Izuku. Izuku let him drop to the dirt, barely conscious and wheezing. He stood, the stolen mask hissing with each breath, and turned to the others. Momo, Kendo, Tetsu, and Kirishima stared at him, wide-eyed, the burst of fresh air finally reaching their lungs. Izuku's voice cut sharp through the filter. He's done. You're safe. But I don't have time to explain. The others didn't cheer. They didn't even move. Momo clutched her staff tight, her knuckles white. Kendo's fists, usually steady, trembled at her sides. Tetsu swallowed hard, his steel skin flickering on and off like his body couldn't decide if it should be bracing for another attack. Even Kirishima, always the loud encourager, had gone quiet, his jaw set, eyes wide. Because Izuku wasn't just standing there. He was glowing. The amplifier quirk burned in his chest, bleeding through his skin until his eyes lit neon green in the darkness. It wasn't the hopeful shine of a hero's aura. It was raw, unnatural, a storm bottled in human form. He turned toward them slowly, his gaze catching theirs. Through the mask, his voice came low and ragged. Do you know where Hikari is? None of them answered. The only sounds were the hiss of the mask and the faint groans of Mustard pinned to the ground. Izuku's glow flared brighter, reflecting in their terrified eyes. He saw it, the way they shrank back even though he had just saved them. For a split second, his chest twisted with something sharp. But the rage drowned it out. I don't have time for this, he said, voice cutting through the silence. They're after Hikari. I have to move. He tightened the gloves, liquid metal shifting restlessly at his feet. The ground hummed as the plates reformed, jittering, preparing to lift him again. Momo finally found her voice, strained. Midoriya, wait, what are you? But Izuku didn't answer. His eyes glowed brighter, his body already pulling away from the dirt, hovering unsteadily above the forest floor. I'll save her, he growled. Even if the rest of you are too afraid to move. And then, in a rush of sparks and shrieking steel, he launched himself back into the night sky, leaving his classmates standing in the clearing, not just relieved but shaken. They'd seen a hero save them. But what left them behind was something else. The forest swallowed him, the glow of his eyes vanishing into smoke and shadow. Behind him, the night burned louder, fire cracking through the trees, distant screams tearing across the mountainside. Somewhere ahead, deeper in the chaos, others were already surrounded. Shinso's throat was raw from shouting, his capture scarf dragging uselessly through the dirt. He'd fought strays before, but this was different. The forest felt alive with monsters, and 5 of them had locked onto their group. His gut twisted when he glanced at Hikari. At first, the translucent force field that shimmered around her had deflected the blows, buying them seconds at a time. But the Nomu were relentless, and the barrier had cracked under the weight of too many strikes. Now blood stained her side, not because she wanted to take the hits, but because she'd been caught one too many times while shoving others clear. She was pale, her breath sharp, yet she stayed upright, because the others needed her to. Izuku landed in a quake of steel and dirt, eyes glowing green, mask hissing. His voice was a rasp. They hurt you. The first Nomus with red veins has smoke coming out its mouth as it stared at Izuku. Then the beast opened its maw, a jet of flame tearing across the clearing. Izuku yanked sheets of steel into a shield, sparks screaming as fire hammered against it. The edges melted, burning his arms raw, but regeneration stitched the flesh before the pain could slow him. He roared and pushed the molten shield forward, smashing into the Nomu's chest. His hand drove into its ribcage, glowing bright. Normally he'd drain and release, he didn't let go. His grip tightened until the creature convulsed, thrashing, its flames sputtering in broken bursts. He held on, jaw clenched, until the fire winked out entirely and the body went slack. The heat didn't just fade into him. It rooted deep, lungs boiling with power that was his now. Not borrowed. Not temporary. Dead. Quirk and memories absorbed. Then two came at once, one from the left, forearms bursting with jagged spikes, the other a blur of claws darting in from the right. Izuku's reflexes screamed too late. Bone speared through his arm while the blur raked his ribs. Blood sprayed. Shock absorption dulled the pain just enough. Snarling, Izuku grabbed the spike still lodged in his flesh and ripped the Nomu into the path of the speedster. The two collided, tangling violently. Liquid metal lashed out, binding them together, slamming them into the dirt. Izuku straddled their thrashing bodies, palms pressed down, one chest then the other. He didn't drain and move on. He clamped harder, fingers digging in, the glow flaring brighter. Both Nomu convulsed, claws raking wildly, shrieks tearing through the night. Still he held. Still he pulled. Until the spikes retracted into nothing and the blur of speed froze dead in its tracks. When he finally released, both were husks. Bone cracked inside his own fist, spikes threatening to burst through his knuckles. His vision sharpened, time itself bending to his reflexes. Both quirks belonged to him now, anchored deep. Dead. Quirk and memories absorbed. A Nomu hissed as it perched on a tree, then vanished. The shimmer darted past Ishido's shoulder, claws raised. Izuku was there first, speed sharpening his steps into a blur. Liquid metal whipped back, coiling the invisible Nomu mid-strike and slamming it into a tree. Bark shattered. He pressed his palm to its chest, pinning it. The body flickered in and out of sight, fighting him, but Izuku ground his hand deeper, refusing to let it go. Stay still. His voice was flat, merciless. The shimmer bled into him, slowly, painfully, until his own arm blurred against the firelight. The Nomu gave a final convulsion and collapsed fully visible, eyes vacant. Dead. Quirk and memories absorbed. The last one crouched low, saliva hissing as it ate through the dirt. Acid sprayed toward Shinso's feet. Izuku stepped in front of him, mask hissing. Not him. Me. The Nomu lunged, claws dripping acid. The liquid seared his arms. His regeneration knitted it back in raw, patchwork flesh. He caught the monster's jaw in both hands, slamming it to the ground, palm pressed to its chest. Normally he would have stopped when its body went limp. Instead, he clenched tighter, eyes blazing, siphoning until its acid sacs shriveled and its claws hissed empty. He kept pulling even as the body spasmed and twitched under his grip, until finally it stilled forever. Acid heat burned in his veins, dripped from his own fingertips, sizzling the dirt where it fell. Permanently his. Dead. Quirk and memories absorbed. The clearing stank of blood, acid, and smoke. 5 corpses bloodied and beaten. Izuku stood over them, green glow burning through the night. His chest rose and fell raggedly as the 5 new quirks settled into his body. He flexed his hands, bone spikes pushed an inch through his knuckles before retracting, heat steamed in his lungs, and his vision snapped razor-sharp at the smallest motion. The clearing reeked of ash and charred flesh. 5 Nomu corpses steamed in the dirt, each twisted and broken where Izuku had drained the last spark of life out of them. His eyes still glowed a sickly green, his chest heaving, power churning through him like a storm he couldn't shut off. Then she fell. Hikari was slumped near the shattered tree line, her back propped against splintered bark. Blood soaked her shirt at the side, spreading in a dark pool that no regeneration could touch. Izuku. Her voice was a whisper, fragile as smoke. He staggered to her, taking of the mask. He fell to his knees, pulling her into his arms. His pants, his shirt, all of it soaked instantly. Don't talk, please just hold on. I'll get you help, His words cracked uselessly, falling apart into ragged sobs. He pressed his glowing hands to her side, begging the absorbed quirks to work. Regeneration, shock absorption, anything. His amplifier burned bright, trying to force every ounce of power into her. Nothing. They sealed his cuts, healed his bruises, but against her wound they were useless. His power meant nothing where it mattered most. Her hand trembled as it rose to his chest, smearing red across the Black Panther necklace that glinted faintly in the firelight. After tonight, she breathed, never take this off. Promise me. He shook his head desperately, tears streaking his face. Don't talk like that. Her eyes sharpened through the haze of pain. Promise me. His chest seized. I promise. A faint smile curved her lips. Good. Then, take it off. Just this once. So you'll know. Know what? You can just tell me, right, Hikari? Izuku's words came in a desperate plea. Her small nod was certain. Hands trembling, he unclasped the necklace. The instant it left his skin, memories slammed into him like fire. Hikari laughing breathless after sparring, secretly treasuring the warmth it sparked. The many nights they'd been intimate, how she'd felt safe in his arms in a way she could never explain. Her vow whispered in the dark, "I'll always protect him no matter what it costs me." Her dread when she overheard the government's plan at Island, the energy weapon meant to strip him, maybe kill him. Her resolve when Melissa offered to change it into a necklace, "I'll carry this secret if it keeps him free." Her quiet shock and disbelief at overhearing the truth, All Might was supposed to be here. He should have been here tonight. The words echoed like a blade in Izuku's chest. The way she slipped his ring to classmates who weren't on the league's list, a faint glow wrapping them in his protection. If they won't be saved by the system, then I'll make sure they're saved by him. Her dream, clearer than anything, of a life beside him whatever the world called him. A home. A future. Maybe even a child. The flood of love, fear, defiance, and hope poured into him, burning bright and unbearable. Izuku gasped, choking on sobs, clutching her tighter. "No, no, don't leave me." Her breath shuddered against his throat as she pulled herself closer, like she could live a little longer pressed against the rhythm of his heartbeat. Her bloodied fingers traced his jaw as if memorizing him one last time. Her voice was soft, breaking, "I wanted us to have more time. Graduate, be heroes, a home, maybe a child, just us." Izuku's tears fell hot against her skin. But the lie broke in his throat. Her bloody hand brushed his cheek, barely strong enough. "I love you. You made me happy. Every second." Her voice cracked into a whisper. "Don't stop saving them, even the ones the world throws away. But no matter what, I want you to be happy, that's my dream for you." Her hand slipped from his face, hitting the dirt with a dull thud. Louder than the fire. Louder than his scream. Louder than anything else in the world. Her eyes dimmed. The forest went silent except for the fire's crackle. Izuku bent forward, pressing his forehead to hers, the necklace clutched in his fist, her promise ring in his hands. The memories burned in him, refusing to fade. Her voice echoed through every vein. "Save them all, Izuku. Always." His scream tore out of him, raw enough to shake the trees, to silence even the night itself. And in that scream, something inside him broke. Whether he knew it or not, Izuku Midoriya was gone. In his place stood something else. The anchor's voice was solemn. "Good evening. We continue our coverage of the devastating attack on UA High School summer training camp, where multiple villains, including Nomo-class creatures, launched a coordinated strike on Class 1A. At least a dozen students were hospitalized, and one young hero in training lost her life." A still photo flashed across the screen, Hikari Aizawa, smiling in her UA tracksuit. The anchor's tone grew heavier. "Hikari Aizawa, age 15, daughter of pro heroes Eraserhead and Ms. Joke, is confirmed dead. She is being remembered tonight as a promising student and rising hero." Sources within UA also confirmed that Aizawa was the girlfriend of fellow student Midoriya Izuku. The screen shifted to a stock image of Izuku from the sports festival, head bowed, green eyes shadowed. Midoriya, already controversial for his abilities and the viral Exodus speech earlier this year, is once again at the center of public debate. Witness reports claim he fought with unmatched ferocity, defeating at least 3 high-level villains and as many as 8 Nomu during the battle. Though no footage has surfaced, multiple accounts describe his powers as overwhelming. A studio commentator cut in, his tone sharp and critical. 3 villains and 8 Nomu? That doesn't sound like a student, that sounds like a monster. And the fact that his girlfriend died under his watch, it raises serious questions. Did his recklessness put her in danger? Another voice rose in defense. Or did he keep the death toll from being much, much higher? We've seen this boy fight before. Yes, it's brutal, yes, it scares people. But who else among those students could have stood against 8 Nomu and walked away? The anchor interjected, measured but cutting. This is not the first time Midoriya has been at the center of a crisis. Viewers will recall the I-Island incident earlier this year, when villains seized control of the entire island. Sources confirm Midoriya was instrumental in freeing hostages, disabling advanced weaponry, and defeating Wolfram, the enhanced ringleader of the attack. At the time he was hailed as a savior. But tonight, the question resurfaces, is he truly a hero in training, or something far more dangerous? New footage rolled, protesters clashing outside UA's gates. One side held signs that read, "Expel Exodus, UA breeds villains, and keep our children safe." The other waved handmade banners declaring, "Hero for the outcasts and Exodus saves." The chanting of both groups collided like 2 storms breaking over the same shore. The anchor's voice grew somber again. Dozens of parents have now spoken out, demanding accountability from UA. Some claim the League of Villains continues to target the school not in spite of Midoriya, but because of him. A parent's voice was played, furious and trembling. If not for that boy, my child wouldn't be in the hospital right now. Wherever he goes, villains follow. First Island, now the training camp. How many more attacks before UA realizes he's the magnet for disaster? Another parent's words followed, breaking with grief. I don't hate him, but I'm terrified. My son nearly died. I want him out before it happens again. The anchor delivered the closing line with weight. The name, Exodus, is trending again tonight. His supporters claim he represents the forgotten, the quirkless, the outcasts, those society calls dangerous. His critics insist he's exactly what they fear, a violent figure who will one day turn on the very system he claims he wants to save. As the nation mourns the loss of Hikari Aizawa, the eyes of the world now turn to her grieving partner. Is Midoriya Izuku a young hero rising from tragedy, or a warning sign of something far darker? The screen faded to black on a still image of Izuku, head bowed, fists clenched, the panther necklace gleaming faintly at his chest. A boy caught between grief and myth. The morning after, at police station. The overhead light hummed, too steady for the memories clawing at Shinso's chest. He sat across from the officer, shoulders tense, eyes hollow from days without rest. The tape recorder clicked on. For the record, Hitoshi Shinso, please recount what you witnessed regarding Midoriya Izuku during and after the attack. Shinso swallowed. His voice came rough like gravel. He fought like nothing else mattered. He threw himself at them, villains, Nomu, whatever stood in the way. No hesitation, no care if it killed him. I don't think he even thought about himself. Just everyone else. The pen scratched against paper. Shinso's gaze drifted, unfocused, seeing not the station walls but the clearing drenched in dawn's light. And when it was over, when she was gone, he didn't let go. Not once. He sat there all night, holding her. Wouldn't move, wouldn't speak, barely even breathe. Just held her like he could keep her here if he refused to release her. The officer hesitated, but Shinso's words kept spilling, raw and jagged. When the helicopter came, the medics tried to take her. He snapped at them, threatened them. Said if they touched her, he'd break them. He meant it too. I've never heard him sound like that. They had to let him climb aboard still clutching her, because there was no force in the world that was going to make him let go. His voice cracked and he scrubbed a hand over his face. The room was too quiet, the air too thick. And in your opinion, is Midoriya a danger to others? Shinso's jaw tightened. He stared at the empty chair across from him, the one he half expected Izuku to be sitting in. He's not the danger. The danger is what happens if you keep treating him like he is. The officer paused, then leaned forward, his voice heavier now. You weren't present for all of his battles, were you? The reports are detailed. Muscular. Midoriya broke nearly every bone in the man's body. Moonfish. His restraints were the only reason he survived the injuries Midoriya inflicted. And Mustard. The officer shook his head, lowering his voice. A child villain barely older than yourselves. Midoriya left him unconscious and gasping, nearly dead from his own toxin. Shinso's stomach twisted. He hadn't known the details, just the aftermath, the blood, the bodies. Hearing it laid out clinical and cold made it sound worse, like a tally on a sheet instead of survival in a nightmare. The officer studied him closely. So tell me again. After everything you've seen, after what you now know, do you still believe Midoriya Izuku is not a danger to others? Shinso's nails dug into his palms. He thought of the clearing, the ruined Nomu, Izuku's trembling arms wrapped around Hikari, refusing to let go even as dawn burned through the smoke. He thought of the boy who had screamed until his throat bled, not because he loved fighting but because he couldn't bear losing. He lifted his head, voice low but unwavering. Yes, I still believe it. He's not the danger. The officer exhaled slowly, the kind of sigh that said Shinso's words would never make it into the official report. The pen scratched one last note. Very well. That will be all. The tape recorder clicked off and the room fell into silence. Shinso sat there a moment longer, staring at the empty chair across from him, the echo of Izuku's grief pressing heavier than the walls. When the officer finally left, Shinso was alone with the hum of the lights and the memory of his friend. Not a monster, not a weapon, but a boy breaking under the weight of a world already deciding what he was. Hero News Network, live interview with All Might. All Might's agency lobby press area. Reporters packed in, cameras flashing. The symbol of peace sits stiffly in his chair, his smile gone. Reporter 1. All Might, the nation is shaken by what happened at UA's training camp. Students were injured. One student, Hikari Aizawa, lost her life. Do you believe UA failed its duty to protect these children? All Might. Every student entrusted to UA is precious. What happened? It is a tragedy, one that will weigh on me and my colleagues forever. But I can say with certainty, my students fought with courage, and without their resolve, the loss would have been far greater. Reporter 2. And what about Midoriya Izuku? Witnesses say he destroyed multiple Nomu, more than even most pro-heroes could manage. Some are calling him a savior. Others say he's dangerous, reckless, unstable. What is your response? The question hangs. All Might's jaw tightens. For a moment he looks down, shadows cutting across his eyes. When he speaks, his tone is formal, distant. All Might. Midoriya is a student. He should never have been forced into that kind of battle. But the truth is, when the darkness pressed in, he stood his ground. He saved lives. Whatever people choose to call him, that fact remains. Reporter 3. Do you support him? Do you see him as a future hero? All Might hesitates, visibly torn. His silence stretches too long. He forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. All Might. My role as a teacher is not to pass judgment in the court of public opinion. It is to guide all my students, every one of them, to the best of my ability. Midoriya will have to decide for himself what path he walks. My only wish is that he survives long enough to choose. Reporters shout follow-ups, but the agency staff cuts the feed. The screen freezes on All Might's strained smile, a symbol no longer radiant but shadowed by doubt. Government Crisis Council. Underground Conference Chamber, Tokyo. Around the table sit Nizu UA Principal, the President of the Hero Public Safety Commission, and high-ranking government officials. Police Commissioner Kenji Tsurigami is present as well, tail swishing anxiously beneath the table. The air hums with urgency. All of them have their face covered, which buys them anonymity. Government Minister. Let's begin. The nation is in uproar. A student dies on UA's watch, the daughter of two pro-heroes no less. And now this boy, Midoriya Izuku, dominates the headlines. Exodus. Savior to some, threat to others. We need answers. Commission President. The commission is already monitoring public sentiment. Supporters rally around him as if he's the second coming of All Might, but his critics are louder. They say UA breeds instability, that Exodus proves it. If we don't control the narrative, the people will. Nizu. Midoriya saved lives. Without him, more students, perhaps all of them, would be dead. That fact must not be forgotten amidst the noise. You cannot paint him as the problem while ignoring the villains who created this nightmare. Minister. And yet, Principal, what do you propose we do when the symbol of peace himself hesitates to endorse the boy? When citizens are clashing in the streets over whether he's a hero or a monster? We cannot afford civil unrest, not now. Commission President. The solution is containment. Quiet oversight. We assign handlers, restrict his movements, control his appearances. If Exodus is to exist, it will be under our watch. Otherwise, public opinion will demand his removal from UA. Nizu's eyes narrow, his paws folded neatly before him. Nizu. You speak of him like a weapon to be locked away. He is a boy, grieving, scarred but still human. If you press him, if you cage him, you will create exactly what you fear. Midoriya's power is immense, yes, but so is his heart. Dismiss that, and you may push him toward the very darkness you claim to guard against. Minister. And if he already walks that path? The silence thickens. Then the police commissioner clears his throat, cutting in with clipped efficiency. Tsurigami. We don't have the luxury of speculation tonight. Thanks to young Yairosa's tracker, we have two confirmed League hideouts. The first, a bar where the warp user and several lieutenants are believed to congregate. The second, a warehouse tied to their logistics network. Both sites are active. Commission President. You're saying we have them cornered? Tsurigami. We strike tonight. Coordinated raids. All Might and Endeavor will lead the charge at the bar. The majority of the top 10 heroes, Best Jeanist, Ed Shot, Kamui Woods, and more, will hit the warehouse. Police units will provide containment. We will not allow them to slip through our grasp again. Nizu. And the students? Tsurigami. Kept in the dark. This is a pro-hero operation, not a classroom exercise. The Commission President adjusts her glasses, voice like glass. Commission President. Good. If we deliver the League's leaders tonight, public fury will shift away from UA and this Exodus problem. Heroes reclaim the narrative, not students. Nizu's tail flicks once, razor-sharp eyes glittering. Nizu. Just remember, villains adapt. And when they do, it will not be policy or propaganda that saves you. It will be the children you underestimate. The room goes silent again, the weight of his warning settling even as orders are given. Tonight the war will move from whispers to open fire, and every side knows the cost. Hospital. The room was too bright, too clean, too alive for what it held. Izuku sat hunched in the corner chair, fists trembling so hard the chair arms rattled beneath them. Around his neck hung the panther-shaped necklace Hikari had given him, its weight pressing into his chest, reminding him with every breath that she was gone. In his hand lay the ring. Not just any ring, the high-tech band he had built for her. Its silver curve was etched with faint circuitry, designed to flare into a shield when she was in danger. And it had worked. The ring had blocked blades, dulled impacts, even turned aside a Nomu's strike long enough for her to fight back. She had survived moments she never should have, all because of it. But it wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. The ring could only endure so much, and in the end, it couldn't save her. She had still fallen, still died in his arms, despite everything he had poured into it. Now the band sat cold and lifeless in his palm, a cruel reminder that no matter how much he built, no matter how hard he tried, it had not been enough. The door slid open. Aizawa entered, stoic but cracked, bandages shadowing his tired face. Ms. Joke followed, her steps hesitant, eyes red and swollen from hours of crying. They both stopped when they saw Izuku, curled around the ring like it was the only thing tethering him to the earth. He rose slowly, his voice raw and ragged. Before she died, she gave me her memories. She made me promise to keep them. His chest hitched, and he pressed the ring tighter into his palm until his skin broke. She loved you. Both of you. She thought the world of you. She was proud to be your daughter. Ms. Joke's sob tore the silence apart, a jagged sound that seemed to rip through the sterile walls. She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking violently, like grief had turned her bones to glass. Aizawa lowered his head, his eyes narrowing against tears he could no longer hold back. His fists clenched so tight that the bandages seeped red. Izuku's own tears finally broke free, spilling hot down his cheeks. His hand opened just enough to show the glint of the ring. His voice splintered. I made her a promise, to keep her safe. A promise for a future together. And I failed her. His gaze dropped to the ring again and the memory surged fresh and raw. When we reached the hospital, the nurses begged me to let go of her, but I couldn't. I kept holding on, waiting for her to wake up, waiting for her to breathe again. I thought if I just kept her close, she would open her eyes. For a moment, the three of them stood together, drowning in grief, bound by the girl who had carried them all. The door creaked again. A doctor entered quietly, clipboard pressed against his chest. His voice was soft, clinical, too soft for the knife he was about to twist. You can see her now. I'm sorry for your loss. For both lives. The words cut the air apart. Ms. Joke blinked through her tears, confusion breaking across her face. Both lives? Aizawa's head snapped up, his voice sharp, low, deadly. What did you just say? The doctor froze, eyes wide. She was pregnant. Very early. We discovered it during examination. I thought you knew. Izuku's body locked. The ring slipped from his hand and clattered against the floor, the sound far too loud, like metal shattering bone. His chest seized, his breath breaking as though the air itself had betrayed him. His eyes burned with something between agony and disbelief. Ms. Joke collapsed into Aizawa's side, sobbing so hard it seemed to break her apart. Even he, the man who never cracked, shook as his fists clenched tighter, knuckles splitting open until blood dripped between his fingers. The doctor shifted uncomfortably, his voice quieter, almost apologetic. One of the best morticians in the country has already been called to handle her remains. They'll make sure she's cared for properly. The words barely registered through the storm. Izuku stared at the fallen ring, unable to reach for it. His breaths came ragged, the necklace searing against his chest. She never knew. She never got to know. And now, both of them were gone. The hospital hum carried on, lights flickering sterile and cruel, machines beeping in the distance. Life went on. But for Izuku the world had already ended. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share and donate for more videos.